General Flynn, we've been talking about a potential October surprise. Whether it happens this October or March, it's inevitable. Yeah. I agree with you. It's inevitable. The other nations of the world, because you don't have to trade in American dollars. It really is antiquated, in a sense, for Brazil to purchase something from China and to convert to American dollars. Right. We need the world to want dollars because we have this massive debt, and who's going to buy the debt? Right. But the rest of the world doesn't necessarily need the American dollar anymore.
Yeah, they don't. And I think people, we've taken that for granted. We've been complacent in the strength of our economy. That's why I said earlier about the trillions of dollars of debt that we've been talking about that, and yet we're still like, out
if you have to pay the interest on it, it's a lot of money, and the interest on it will consume all of our income taxes.
And the American people don't realize that they're paying the interest on it.
Right.
They just don't know that. I mean, it's like, okay, I got it. I got to go buy my eggs, right? Yeah.
But de Gaulle called this an exorbitant privilege of America, and we've abused the privilege for 50 years.
Yeah, it's just like, so, I'm going to get, sort of put my Christian hat on here, because there's a complacency in the Christian community, just like there's a complacency, just, feeling like, we're always going to be a strong nation.
Right.
Okay? That complacency that has caused an atrophy and a moral decline, a moral decay in our society has placed us in a position right now of weakness. And that weakness is seen in the types of leaders that we have put into political office, like we were just talking about Rome. I mean, the same sort of thing with Athens. There's a lot of similarities in the collapse of empires when they come to the end. And one of them is overextension of their military, extraordinary debt, greed, right? I mean, that's a deadly sin, right? So if those that are listening and watching, you go look up at the 7 deadly sins, we're getting an A+ for every single one of them. A+, every single deadly sin. So we as Americans, so what to do?
Yeah,
right?
What do we do about it?
So we as Americans, what we have to do is, at this point in time, the founders of our country, they did not sit there and argue about what the federal government needed to look like. That was not their initial argument. Their initial argument was, what rights do we give to individuals, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Big argument. Life wasn't as much argued, because if you didn't have life, you had nothing else. So got to have life. Liberty, easy. Pursuit of happiness, there was a lot more arguing about it, but they argued about what individuals needed to have first. That was the most important foundational element that you find in our Constitution, in our laws. It's about protecting the individual. And yet, what we've done is we've taken and completely flipped our government because of all the things that I just mentioned about complacency, and we've allowed the federal government to kind of usurp what it was that we were created to do, to basically have individual rights and responsibilities.
Right.
The bigger word there is responsibilities. The second thing that the founders did in their argument was they argued for states. Then they said, okay, I'm one of the 13 original states, and I'm going to argue about what does Rhode Island need? What does South Carolina need? I still want to have my own sovereignty, right? And they have some incredible state constitutions that are some of them, they're built on the Magna Carta of the 1200s, right? So people don't understand that. And then they argued a bit at the end about, well, what should the federal government do? You had some foreign diplomacy you had to do. One of the interesting things for most people that don't know is that in our Constitution, it does say that we will maintain a Navy from a military perspective. It doesn't say we'll maintain an Army and an Air Force and all these other things. Nope. It just says we must maintain a Navy, and I think the verbiage is, in time of war, we will, essentially create a militia or stand up an army of sorts, but we don't have to have that. But that doesn't mean that I don't want it. I'm just telling you what is in our Constitution. Right. These are small things that they needed at the federal level.